Right, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Christina for joining us here in our group from Northern Italy, where she might be having a little bit of a cold right now. So we are especially grateful to you for joining us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking today about the 5 Ds of effective dialogue. I think is a really, I like that kind of way of going about it and putting it up. So before we go there, I want to show a video that I think is actually a really good, a really wonderful video showing one of the first steps of this. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll push play. Okay.
This is the most important and crucial period of your lives, for what you do now and what you decide now at this age may well determine which way your life shall go. And whenever a building is constructed, you usually have an architect who draws a blueprint. And that blueprint serves as the pattern, as the guide, as the model for those who are to build the building. And a building is not well erected without a good, sound, and solid blueprint. Now, each of you is in the process of building the structure of your lives. And the question is whether you have a proper, a solid, and a sound blueprint. And I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. In your life's blueprint, you must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence.
There we go. Thought that was quite appropriate. Isn't that awesome?
Wow. I'm gonna use that in the future. You need to send me the link to that.
I totally will. I will. It's always good to have the king, right? Always good.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, why don't we start with dignity? Why don't we start with kind of like the overview of what you're talking about and what is the point of these 5 Ds? Why don't we start there?
Okay, well, the 5 Ds are actually kind of what not to do in conversation.
Okay.
And then another D, dignity, is one of the antidotes to get beyond them. So really what quite often happens when we have these kind of conversations, difficult conversation topics, is that we get quite triggered. Like, not even conversations, because we're in dialogue as well when we're reading something, an article, or we're watching a documentary. Maybe there's something that triggers us.
Can you talk about those triggers a little bit? Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, so a trigger might be, I don't know, a feeling of anxiety or anger or resentment, or, how dare they, self-righteousness, or dismissing, that's total rubbish. So this feeling of being triggered is emotional. There's a very strong emotional response to it, which usually we can also feel in our bodies. And I'll come to that in the kind of, shall we say, in the antidote bit. I'll come to that. But it's that feeling when we're very strongly emotionally triggered, that we have these strong emotional reactions. That's when things get icky.
Yeah.
That's when conversation and dialogue breaks down.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and this is actually something that even I have been talking about a lot in our series that we've been doing, which is emotions are such helpers to us. They're like our buddies. They're so helpful at helping us figure out what we need to do in each moment. It's when they're kind of at that subconscious level, and sometimes when there are just so many emotions, it's hard to pick out what's going on, that they can be not super helpful.
Exactly. And it's particularly because we rarely have just one emotion. Usually there's a whole load of emotions that kind of pile in on each other. They're interdependent. There's this kind of maelstrom of stuff that's going on, which then just feels generally icky. And we don't want that ickiness. We want to get rid of that ickiness.
Yeah.
So usually, like I was listening to your conversation that you had with Charlie. That's when the finger pointing and the blaming and the victim comes in. I don't want to feel this ickiness. It's your fault that I'm feeling icky.
Yes, exactly.
So and because we don't want to be feeling this ickiness, that's when the 5Ds come in the conversation.
Okay. So this is an extremely appropriate time to talk about this, because there's a lot of conversation that's going on right now. And there's a lot of opinions about what should be done in a lot of decisions that are needing to be made. And almost it's like it's so quick that we can't really necessarily process through, or we're not taking the time to process through those emotions that are coming up with all of that stuff. So I was just actually asked today by a wonderful woman. She was like, what are the things that I can do when I have on one side somebody who's completely quarantined, not leaving their house, not doing any of it, and then on the other side these people that are like still having friends over for drinks and all of that kind of stuff. And she's like, I'm kind of in the middle, where she's like, I kind of use my own discernment about when I'm going to go out and do all that kind of stuff. And she was like, how do I respond to that? How do I effectively respond to those sorts of situations?
Yeah, I think that's the story of the 21st century, right? There's all of these polarizations now, with people quarantining and shutting themselves in their toilet paper castles. Other people who are going, I'm immune, so yay, we're going to have parties. And then, political polarizations and economic polarizations and race and sexes and all this kind of stuff. So we find ourselves quite often in, how can we engage with both sides? And actually somebody else said to me, how can I bring people along, into the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
How can I get them to engage when they really don't want to engage?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is, you can't force anybody to do anything. This is a really tough thing to accept. We can't change people's minds. We can't force them to do something. We can't force them to engage in the conversation. So the only thing we can work on is ourselves. Voila.
This is literally what Eva and I were talking about in our webinar today, was like, here we go.
We've got to do the hard work,
Yeah.
because then maybe we can open a little chink and make it safe for people to engage.
Yeah.
So the wonderful Bob Dylan once said, people deny anything that overwhelms them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a fantastic quote. It's one of my, people deny anything that overwhelms them. So I think there's a lot of people in overwhelm. I mean, this is just the nth polarization to be kind of dumped on all of the rest.
That's true.
And so it's just a massive overwhelm. We're not used to this kind of thing. There's that kind of arrogance, European, American arrogance as well. This is weird that this epidemic thing is happening here. It can't possibly be. I think that was part of the initial, don't know how to deal with this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it seems like that. Again, we've been talking a lot about the processing of fear, and in my runner's block, I have one of my leadership tribe mates. She just put up a video that was amazing about the natural response to uncertainty, to unusual things happening to us, is fear. It's just that's our natural response to stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that comes up in conversations as well. So in these very difficult topics, it
Yeah.
triggers stuff. And that's what I'm talking about when we're being triggered. Very often it's fear
Yeah.
or it's anger, but anger kind of relates back to fear of losing something or fear of something not happening, right?
I wonder, this is so interesting. Have you heard about the cancel culture? This is
No.
like in America, this is a thing. And it's basically like, I just heard about it from my sister like a month ago because she's in Hollywood area and she was talking about during the Oscars, Joaquin Phoenix talked about cancel culture. And it's basically like when somebody does something that's like maybe vaguely wrong, we're just like, you're done, you're out, you've been ousted, you have now been voted off of the island. And I think that this is a place to go with that as well, because partially perhaps because when we're in like with social media and stuff and our connections with people around the world, we're in so many more conversations. Like there's just a lot of conversations that are going on. And so when somebody says something that is surprising in that conversation, something that I didn't expect, like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen in this conversation strand, that we're just like, we're done with this conversation, we're not going to do this anymore, and not finding that effective way to kind of deal with it. So can we talk about the 5Ds? Can I share the document, the resource that we're going to
Of
share this
course.
resource in the group too? Can I share it?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
I'm going to screen share here, you tell me where to go. Okay, all right, so this is, it talks about the conversational thread. I love this, it's beautiful. So you want to tell us what the conversational thread is?
So the conversational thread is the thread of our lives, right? We're constantly in conversation. And David White, he's an amazing writer and poet, and he's a huge influence on me. White with a Y, and he talks really beautifully about this notion that we're always in conversation with life, and it's whether we're open and in active participation in this conversation or whether we're closing it down.
I love that. That's beautiful.
It's fantastic. And so between people, between human beings, we're constantly in conversation as well. And one of the most powerful ways is of acknowledging each other. And I remember in leadership, CTI leadership, but also in other situations when people share their life stories. They share snippets of themselves, and it's the most humanizing thing we can do. It's the most wonderfully surprising thing, because I don't know about you, but I was like, no way, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Or
exactly. This is literally one of the reasons that I wrote my book, because it is my life story. And it's like, I think that people look at me now and don't expect those things that happen in my life to be the actual story of my life. And so it's like, it's not like sunshine and, it's different. Our stories are so complex.
they're incredibly complex. And if you listen I love the Human Library Project as well, where you can borrow people and listen to stories of their lives. So I think this is one of the most ancient and most fundamental ways that we communicate, whether it's telling stories as in myths and legends, but also hearing each other's stories. So, and the most powerful part of this is that we gain so many different perspectives, people living through so many different things. But it also helps us in the telling of our story. It helps us to make sense of things in our own life.
Mm-hmm.
And also I like to call it to de-story and restory.
Mm.
So if I'm really, really open to reframing, and it's amazing what other people will hear and reflect back to you that you think, whoa, I never saw it that way before.
Right? Yes.
And that's the bit that allows you to de-story and then restory.
Yeah.
Or to reframe your narrative. That's the power of it. And when that's happening mutually, wow,
Yeah. It's very, 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 very cool.
it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to I would like to go on to the 5Ds. So
Yeah.
let's talk about these 5Ds. These are the Ds that don't help.
These are the Ds that don't help. And as is written in the top, this is in service of self-preservation. Okay, this is I also call it the small self. This is the little kitty inside who's freaking out and feeling really vulnerable and scared. And this is where the fear comes in and the overwhelm comes in and the being triggered comes in. So we all revert to these. Everyone reverts to these. I bet even Gandhi reverted to these. and MLK. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
So these are totally normal and human. So the important thing is to kind of recognize, that might be the one that I use more, because we might have a mixture of 2 or 3, and just to become aware of it. So I thought, also some concrete, examples of each one. So one that we use quite often, we hear quite often, is to dismiss. So it's like, okay, this is more important.
What you're saying is just not important, basically.
It's not important to me. It's not a priority to me. Okay. Or dismissing as, well, I'm sure that's not what they meant. I'm sure that's not what they intended. I'm sure that's not what they really said. It's kind of, there's a lot of just. It's kind of,
it's just that, yeah.
Just that,
it's very dismissive. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Just is a good, yeah, okay.
Just is a good indicator of dismissive.
Okay.
He's overreacting.
Okay.
You can see it in the body language as well, right? So there might be this gesture.
Yeah, exactly.
Or a kind of snootiness or something like that.
Yeah.
Just move on. Let it go. You hear a lot of people saying that. It's actually dismissing the person. It's dismissing their experience. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Another one that can be used healthily or unhealthily is the 2% truth.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually just wrote an article about how that can be used healthily when we're in conversation with somebody who is in the, I think, I don't know which one it would be, but it may be the deny, when it's like, I'm in this position and this is literally 100% the only right position that there can ever be in the entire world. This is it. And so it's using that. I like to say, could it be both? And I like to be like, could I be maybe like 5% right and you're 95% right? Okay, no, maybe not. So how about, what could I possibly be like 4% right and you're 96% right? Like, so that there's some way of, just like what you said, of making that space and sort of cracking open just a little bit to say, maybe there is another perspective here. So I can see that in an empowering way in conversation.
Absolutely. And it was intended absolutely as an empowering way, to get past sort of defensiveness and stonewalling, and to get, well, can you, if there's a 2% truth, what would that be? So it is a way in. On the flip side of that, people have learned to use it manipulatively.
Yeah, I can see that too.
I'll take, fine, you've got, I'll see the 2% truth in that.
Yeah.
But it's throwing the dog a bone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I can totally see that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, discredit.
So discredit. So there's a certain few political leaders who love to use discredit at this time. Not going to mention any names. That's so typical of, insert your favorite, nemesis, liberals, lefties, alt-right, feminists, that's just so typical of, you're only a mom.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're only a mom. What do you know?
This was said to my mom in a board meeting. They said, you're only a housewife. What would you know? Okay.
For all those people that are staying at home now you know. Okay. So that's discredit, professional attacks.
Personal, of course you would say that.
Yeah.
Because, that's the position that you're in. Of course you would say that. So anything that's kind of trying to dismantle the person at the other side. Okay.
Take apart like any authority that they might have.
Absolutely. Okay. Deny. This is a big one. Also known, I also call it the ostrich syndrome. This is when people want to stick their heads in the sand and they just don't want to know. And this is probably one of the strongest reactions, because at this point they're feeling so threatened, like what they believe, because a lot of this actually comes out because a belief or an ideology or something, a core part of us that makes up our world, is what we feel is being threatened. So deny is probably one of the strongest. I'm pulling down the shutters. I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I like that when you're like, yeah, I don't believe that can be one. And also I choose to believe can be one. Yeah, that's so interesting. Those are so interesting that those are both denial sort of statements.
They are. And this I choose to believe has become very trendy. You hear a lot of people using it a lot.
Yeah.
And this is one to use with discernment, because we would like to believe that we choose, okay, to believe. But actually very often we're just doing it again in reaction to something.
Yeah.
Because when we really consciously make a choice, we can hold these two parts.
You can hold the tension and be okay with it and be like,
And be okay with it, and
Yeah.
then say, I choose this, or actually most of the time, in that way you find a third way.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and you can sit with it, and there's not this anxiety, or so when people say, well, I choose to believe, again, you can see it in the mannering, in the tone of voice.
Yeah, definitely in the nonverbals, I can see that. Okay.
Absolutely. Deflect. So deflect was one that first came to me when I was coaching, and I had a few clients who, when I would ask a question, imagine that the question is a colored ball, right? And I just gently, I lob the colored ball as a question over to the client, and the client would just like bat it away like it was a baseball. Boom. Right? And I'd be, okay, so I'm going to offer the question again, and this time maybe let it land.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see they see this question as an arrow that's coming to penetrate them, and they're like deflecting it away. So then I would say to them, look, just see it as a beam of light and let it land, and sit with the question, and then see what comes up for you.
I love that. That's beautiful.
So, and it's really powerful once people get to do that, and just gently inviting them, just sit with it.
Yeah.
Let it land, let it in.
Yeah.
Might be painful, might be difficult, might be uncomfortable, but just let it in.
Yeah.
And that's where deflect first came into. But we deflect a lot also when we don't want to talk about something, or we don't want to accept a particular perspective.
Yeah. That's not the only view. This is too negative or aggressive for me. Well, they meant well. They had good intentions. I love that. Nobody ever talks about it. We just don't talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
So, and I say this, and I have done this too. So there's no judgment here, because this is wonderful for me to look at this and say, oh yeah, totally, I see this, and just again bring it to that level of conscious awareness, so
Absolutely.
I can be aware of it in conversation.
Exactly. So these are just little indicators, so we can become aware of it, so we can catch ourselves. And some of them are very subtle. This is too negative or aggressive for me. It doesn't seem like a deflection, really, but it is, because I'm not engaging on the topic. I'm thinking about me, and I'm just getting out of there.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I'm naming the negativity, what I perceive as negativity or aggression. So it's on me.
Yeah.
They meant well. They had good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Totally. I know.
So, again, it's deflecting from the issue that was raised onto, well, I'm sure they meant well.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm sure they meant well.
That's interesting. So it's kind of like a refocusing. So it's taking, this is actually the topic. No, we're going to talk about this thing over here. Okay.
Exactly. That's deflecting. I'm deflecting away from this. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we've got disown. Now, all of the above are ways of disowning something. First of all, I'm disowning my own triggered experience, my own emotions, because I'm throwing it out there and I don't even want to talk about it. A stronger way of disowning it is always in the shoulds.
You know what? This was something that I did for so long. And it was such an incredibly empowering thing for me when I learned to literally only use I statements about everything. So that instead of saying, well, other people out there do this thing, or you should do this thing, or any of the yous, when I was like, well, I think that maybe this is and I think that this is where that I statements is a thing that's out there. And so perhaps that's the empowering kind of response to this disowning sort of thing that we do.
It is, absolutely, because we're shoving it all out there. So we're pulling down the shutters, and then I'm shoving it out there. It's not my stuff. That's your stuff. You made me feel this. If you want me to engage with it, then you should use a different tone. You should use different words.
I legit said all of those things. I was a big disowner for a long time. And I think that there's an interesting part in this that's an interplay, which is that so I'm going to use my husband. My husband specifically would do kind of all of those other things. And so then I would disown. So that was sort of how we did interactions with each other for a long time. And it was really hard because he was trying to throw everything at me. And I was like, this is not all my ball, right? This is a shared ball that we have right here. It's not just me. And so I think my disowning was in, to a certain degree, my self-protective response that I used in order to try to articulate, which I was doing very poorly, this, we're in a relationship, this is a co-created thing that we're doing right now. How do we find our way forward from this?
Absolutely. And it's that self-protection. You named it absolutely. It's that self-protection, because we're all trying to self-protect.
Yeah.
You're pointing things out to me. You're laying things on the table that make me feel shitty.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not allowed to swear.
That's all right.
I
forgive you. It's okay.
Thank you for not dismissing it or denying it. So we don't want to be feeling like this. So we're all just kind of in self-preservation mode, and particularly when emotions are running high, we kind of regress into this small self, into this timid self-preservation thing.
Nice. Okay, so I'm going to give this resource in the group, so you guys will have this actually there too. So let's go on to kind of the antidote to it. Okay.
So this is the antidote. So as it says here, this is in service of connection and growth. Mm-hmm. So the first one is in service of self-preservation. So something that helps hugely is curiosity. Stay curious and don't just say it, live it. Okay, so my whole thing with leadership and with coaching is living it. It's a lived, active experience. It's not just abstract and blah blah and aspirations. We
gotta go do it and try it. This was my thing too, of we have got to, it's an experiment. Life is a big experiment. Let's try it. We're probably gonna fail a lot of times when we first do it, so whatever, we'll figure it out.
Exactly. And when I feel really I've done it again, I'm supposed to be better than this, I'm supposed to be better than this. All that self-flagellation, I can't believe I did that again, and and I have that quite often as well still, and sometimes just really bad, and I like the whole shame monkeys coming in as well.
Yeah.
And I love to pick up Brené Brown and her Daring Greatly, and at the beginning there's that wonderful poem by Ted Roosevelt, I think it is.
I don't know this.
The Man in the Arena?
No, I don't know this.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Okay, I'll look it up and I'll put it in the group too.
Yeah, so it's Man in the Arena, and it's that, I'm paraphrasing now, I'm going to try and remember it vaguely. You can't criticize the man in the arena, the man who's getting bloody and dusty, the man who's falling and getting cut, and who keeps standing up, because they're the ones that are living life that they've thrown themselves in, even if they know it's going to go bad and hurt, but they're still trying, whereas the ones on the stands are just kind of pointing and criticizing.
Yeah.
So it's a lived experience. This is life, people.
Yeah.
It's not a rehearsal, it's not a movie.
Yeah. I've definitely been that person that has been the pointing at the man in the arena, and I've also been the man in the arena. So I think that for me, it is actually kind of that going back and forth, and the more I could be consciously aware of, oh, that's what I'm doing there, the more I was like, well, I'm going to choose to try to not do that,
Absolutely. And I've been the person pointing as well. When I was too scared to get in the arena, because I needed to be perfect. I needed to, well, if I get in the arena, I might get dusty. People might laugh at me.
Perfectionism. It's
all of that kind of stuff.
Not out the window at this point.
So, right. In fact, at one point, I wasn't even in the arena. I was outside, on the street, refusing to even go near it, So
yeah,
it's getting in the arena. It's very easy to judge and to criticize when we're safely in the stands, and it's kind of backseat driving or backseat leadership, I call it. Backseat leader who always knows best, but they don't actually get.
Yeah, I was just talking about being the leader behind, which is where you can voice a disagreement to the actual people who are making decisions, and then if it's not taken, fine, that's okay. Then you have to discern what you're going to do at that point. And leadership behind is really supporting the people who are in the arena. And
it is, and it's in service of something greater.
Yeah, exactly.
Different from backseat leadership, because backseat leadership is just all ego stuff. I know better. You don't know anything. If I were the leader, I would do this.
Yeah.
And just criticizing the whole time. Whereas leader from behind is that support position.
Yeah, exactly. So so the first one is lean in, is it with dignity?
Actually, the first one is catch yourself.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
Okay. So we're in one of our Ds. We're right in there, and somebody's brought us a topic that we really don't want to know about. It's overwhelming us. We're triggered. We're scared. We're ripping the other person apart. First thing is catch yourself. Oops. I'm doing that thing again where I'm ripping apart the other person. I'm shooting the messenger again.
Yeah.
Okay. So catching yourself doing it. And we can only do that if we're present to ourselves.
Have to be present. Yeah.
Have to be present. So we're using presence, we're using mindfulness. Okay. So what am I present to right now? I'm noticing, I don't know, what happens to you when you're triggered?
Well, I've done a lot of work on this. I mean, I still get triggered at this point, and I have actually, from one of my amazing coaches, one of them, he was like, I think that your personality is one where you need to not respond to messages basically for at least a day. And it was such a good thing for me, because in conversation now, I very intentionally try to slow it down. And I actually, when we were watching MLK, I thought it was so interesting how slow he was in his speech. So interesting. Like
Absolutely.
making that presence. So
Absolutely.
that's probably something I could work on more.
So what about what you're present to, what you're feeling in your body when you're triggered?
So when I get triggered, I usually get tense. I get tense and I get tight. Control is definitely one of my things. And I feel control kind of like right here, and everything just gets tight.
Okay. So you feel a general tightness. Okay. So I get like a fluttery feeling in my chest. I can feel my jaw begin to set, like that's and sometimes my hands begin to shake. Like I get a serious adrenaline rush.
Yeah, adrenaline, lots of adrenaline.
So everybody, when they're triggered, everybody has a different response. So the first thing is to become aware of what our body's telling us. Uh-oh, I'm getting triggered. So what am I noticing in my body? And then can I begin to pick out and put a name to some of the emotions that I'm feeling, or I might be feeling? As you said, we often have many different mixed emotions all together. So can we begin to kind of take it apart and see maybe which is the dominant one right now? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Is it despair? Loneliness? There's a lot of different things. And then I've put the question, where is my attention running to? Because is my attention, can I keep it focused on what's happening in here? Or is it going out there? In which case it's probably going to the 5 Ds. So I'm externalizing everything. Okay. And then kind of checking in, how grounded am I right now?
Yeah.
Probably not very.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely.
So it's using presence and being present to what is here right now. And that allows us to slow things down. That allows us to take.
Yeah. I was talking with somebody about this, I think earlier this week, which is, it's the difference between reacting and responding. And I think when we can take that time to stop and process through what's going on, even in the moment, take just 1 minute to process through, it allows us to respond instead of that just reaction.
Exactly, because the 5 Ds are a reaction. Okay, so it's that space that Viktor Frankl, I think it was, spoke about, finding that space between stimulus and reaction or response. So that's it. So hard, particularly when topics are really touch you very deeply, that might also touch, aspects of old trauma or old memories or anything like that. When we're very strongly emotional, and this is where we have to kind of bring in a lot of compassion and understanding for ourselves as well, because we can't expect to be fully present all the time, because sometimes it's really painful. So it's a natural response to lash out, even as much as we don't want to. So knowing that it's unintentional from our side, it's unintentional from another side, it's hurt, it's pain.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, but kind of practicing catching ourselves.
Okay, so we have presence. What's the next one?
The next one is sit with it.
Okay.
So you've got all these emotions, you're feeling all this triggering, you're noticing it, you're noticing what's happening. Stay with it. Sit with it. And that requires courage. Yeah. That requires heart. Because it's really painful sometimes. And Pema Chodron, I don't know if you've read any stuff by her. Amazing. She's fantastic. She writes about this staying with these emotions, not running away from them, not denying them, but really having the courage. She writes so beautifully about this. She's I'd love to spend a day with her. Actually, I'd love to do a whole retreat with her. And really sitting with it and going deeper into it. What am I feeling right now? Usually when there's a real fear, kind of existential fear that comes up, let's say somebody puts an issue on the table, what is a fundamental belief that issue is calling into question or is threatening inside?
What's the story that's going on in your head that needs some kind of rewriting right now?
Exactly. Or even just kind of an exploration of it. What might I be avoiding? What am I afraid of? And above all, what does that then mean to me? So by staying with it and by using that curiosity and courage, I can stay with it and begin to explore it and see what's there for me.
One of the things that I think has been the most useful for me personally with this has been the movie Inside Out, because those personifications of the emotions made it so that the emotions were not scary. They were not things to be like, too much, like even fear. I'm like, oh, he's so cute, so it's like it made it so that I wasn't afraid to go and explore them because they weren't scary. They were just the emotions that are running around up, in me.
Exactly. And did you notice how many of them are traditionally labeled as positive and how many are traditionally labeled as negative?
I know, and it's not true. I was literally just talking about this with my sister. Like, anger is a positive emotion as long as it is channeled into action. Like, MLK clearly had some anger behind what he was saying, and it helped to activate all of us. Anger is such a motivating emotion. So calling it bad, or sadness, calling those emotions bad,
as we said before, that they are data, they're information of us, and they're also telling us what's really important to us.
Yeah.
If we're getting really angry or we're getting really sad, it's telling us something. It's telling us that something important that we need to pay attention to.
Yes, exactly.
And we can either, blame the other person and again shoot the messenger, or we can sit with it, stay present to it, and go in and see what's there.
Because again, who's the only person that we can change or do anything about? Me.
Exactly. You.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so then is the next one re-engage ownership?
Exactly.
Okay.
So re-engage on two levels. Firstly, re-engage here.
Okay. Inside.
So we've been present to it. We've sat with it. We're getting some clarity about what's important to me. What does this mean to me? So re-engaging is, okay, I've taken that space. So probably I'm beginning to calm down. The amygdala and the limbic system are beginning to stop pumping out all of those stress hormones. So this is where I'm beginning to take ownership. Okay, so I'm owning my emotions. Maybe there was a trigger in what somebody said or wrote or did, but the emotions are mine and mine alone.
Yeah, which is cool. Okay. Such a great place to be.
It is, once you get there.
Yeah.
Hard to get there.
Yeah.
Not only that, I also own my ideals. You know, we're quite idealistic. We have ideals and beliefs, but those are mine. I don't need to push them onto anybody else, and it informs the way that I live my life. So I take ownership of that. So then I take ownership of a load of things: fear, anxiety, insecurity, uncertainty. Those are hard things to own.
Yeah, definitely.
Those are the things we want to deny. That's when we get into denial a lot of the time. Okay. It's really tough to say, I'm scared. You know, I'm really anxious about this. I'm terrified because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's completely normal human emotions.
I have found, I don't know if this is true for everyone. I found that with moms, the mom groups that I've been with, it is extremely hard for them to say that, because it's felt as a protection for their children when they're like, no, everything's going to be okay. And I have actually learned that my kids feel those feelings that I'm feeling inside of themselves too, right? They feel it. They know that that's how I'm feeling. And so when I dismiss it, it makes them, they're like, but that's not the label that I had on that emotion. And so then they get confused about what's going on. And so when I can own it in that empowering way and be like, I am anxious right now, you know, I just am. That's just the emotion that's coursing through me right now. It helps them. It's actually in service to them as well, in service to their growth.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that you brought that up and that you articulated that, because it is so important. Because I think, thinking of my growing up, I was so confused about emotions and not being able to articulate them because of the environment I grew up in. People were saying one thing, but I could feel that there was something different. And I got so confused.
Yes.
It's what's got me a lot in trouble in my adult life too, because I just was incapable.
Yeah.
Well, not incapable, but you know, so I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing and so important. And it gives them permission as well to say, actually, I'm scared.
Yes.
And
then have a conversation about, what does that mean?
Exactly.
Right, what are we going to do? You know, okay, I don't know. Let's figure that out. And as long as I am sitting with it, with that courage, it seems to be not an issue at all. In fact, there's relief. There's a lot of relief in the system of the family when they're like, oh, okay, we can talk about this, you know, which is so interesting.
Exactly. And that's the re-engagement part then, because I'm not kind of overwhelmed anymore. I've named it, and I can engage with you then as well, because I've engaged myself. That's the sense of relief. Oh, okay, we're in this together. We can do this together.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay, and then the last one is dignity.
Dignity. So this is where we're leaning in. So we've re-engaged with ourselves, we've re-engaged together, and we're leaning in to the other. So this is, I love the way MLK put it. It's knowing your own worth. It's knowing who you are. It's understanding what your own dignity is. And it's seeing the other person, you know, eye to eye and heart to heart.
Yeah. Seeing the dignity in the other person as well.
Absolutely. And there's such a lack of dignity in the world today. Like, we've lost a lot of it.
Because I feel like it's there. I just think that it's a little bit covered up. We don't know the tools to articulate it well. That's how I feel. I feel like people, yeah.
It's a much better articulation of it, actually. Lost is the wrong way to put it, because these four: presence, courage, ownership, and dignity, I consider to be completely essential human qualities that are inherent to all of us. Yeah. So it's there, but we kind of forget it. We forget to tap into it.
It's like in the unconscious. So let's bring it to that conscious level and then use it.
Exactly. So it's understanding our own self-esteem and self-worth, and not being on that seesaw of inferiority and superiority.
Yeah, because that's a weird, not great place to be.
It's a horrible place to be. It's an exhausting place. I've been there a lot, and I still find myself there sometimes. And when I realize, again, when I catch myself that I'm doing this balancing act, and I'm thinking, oh, this is so tiring. Yeah. I don't feel good. To remember to jump off.
Yeah. Yeah. Just be like, whoa, disengage with that whole thing. We're going to try to figure out another way.
Let's just have a conversation between human beings. So, and this is where the lean in comes though, because the other person needs to be doing their own dignity work too. So we can extend the hand, we can have the invitation, we can help them. Sometimes it needs to be stronger than just kind of being nicey about it. Sometimes it needs to be a very strong point of view. But if there is a really strong lack of self-esteem, if there is a strong lack of self-confidence, or victimhood, I know you mentioned victimhood in another thing, it doesn't help us to stand with dignity.
And what I found to help in that situation specifically is when I start telling my stories. When I start telling stories of my own that are of my weaknesses and things that other people have helped me with specifically, almost like permission granting for being like, yeah, we're not perfect, because we are not. Like, legit, nobody is perfect.
No.
So, like, granting that permission to sit in that space of, maybe we can learn together. I've done it with other people. Other people have helped me a lot. That's something that I personally have found to help in that situation.
Absolutely. It's anything that humanizes us. So the dignity is about humanity. It's about humanizing myself and humanizing the other, and meeting on that level footing. So we're going through very similar kind of stuff. We all have different, external contexts and situations, etc. But we all have hopes. We all have fears. We all have anxieties. We all have, loves and joys and upsets. Those are all things that connect us and that we all go through. So it's remembering that. And dignity is a way also into compassion and into empathy. And actually, empathy and compassion are ways into dignity as well. They're kind of reciprocal.
I love that. That's beautiful.
And it's really about on a practical level, because a lot of people say, well, dignity, okay, yeah, self-worth, inherent value, okay. But on a practical level, it's really seeing and listening to. So when somebody talks about an experience they've lived through, rather than dismissing it or denying it, it's really seeing them for who they are in that moment, and also taking it exactly as they say it. So there's no judgment about the way they're expressing themselves.
Yeah. This is, what so here's an example that just came to me for this, which is when women are talking about their weight and they're like, I'm so fat. And we'll be like, no, you're not, and it's just like, well, okay, what are we doing here? And so if it's a like, well, tell me more about that, and creating that space and having that extreme belief, I love this, in the common dignity of us in our humanness and who we are, and creating space for each other. So yeah. Okay. So we're going to have to wrap this up because we're getting close to the end of our time. And this is it's such a timely topic. So thank you so much, really, honestly.
My pleasure.
So helpful. And also, I think that we've been given this huge gift right now of time, and of being able to have space in conversations with people and create that space for each other, especially now. The people that I talk with now, a lot of what they want to do is they just want to talk, to process through everything that's going on right now. And me simply being able to be there and just be open for them and just be that kind of sacred witness to the things that they're saying and what's going on it's a beautiful gift that we're being given right now. Is this gift of time.
It is. I fully agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think I hope this can help people in their conversations. Please don't use it as a way to judge yourself or put more pressure on yourself that you should be present, you should be courageous. It's not about that.
No.
Absolutely. It's a practice. It's a lived experience. It's just bit by bit, baby steps to try to make things a little bit less toxic and more engaged.
It's just, again, it's like, I think we all have these skill sets in our unconscious. I think we've all got them down there. It's just bringing it to that level of awareness so that we can use them when we are in that situation, so we can respond instead of reacting to.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carmen.
It's so good to see you.
Take care
of yourself, okay?
I will. I'm gonna have. You can hear my voice going now.
I know. So thank you. Thanks
Really
for a full hour of your time. I really appreciate it a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Carmen. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.